Good afternoon, teachers and our friends. We are Group 16, and today we will stand here to present about inflation targeting. And our group has three members, me, Tianx, Dat, and Nguyen. Now we will move on to the next part. First is about the definitions of inflation targeting. First is a monetary policy strategy used by central banks. Second is using method interest rate trends. Last but not least is designed to assume price stability. Next, we will look after about advantages of inflation targeting. There are three advantages. That is balancing predictability and expectations. Second is preventing purple and fueling sustainable growth. And third is preventing economic collapse. The disadvantage of inflation targeting is first, unrealistic in a real market. Second, again developments, and third is some side effect. Next, Nguyen will represent about his part.
Okay, now my name is Nguyen, and I will talk about the performance of the inflation targeting. Okay, first, for an inflation targeting to work, we need certain steps to ensure that. First, we have to ensure the independence of the central bank. In some Asian countries, the central bank and the ministries of finance is still relating to each other and is work based on the deal of each other. And to do that, we have to implement a single objective monetary policies with transparency in all activities. The next step we have to ensure is to establish a reasonable time frame in line with each qualified area. Okay, now I take three examples. First is New Zealand, and the second one is Canada, and the third one is EU. And you can see that they all deployed this inflation targeting in the 90s, and since that the current inflation target has been extraordinary work. As you can see that they all hold at 0 to 3%, and the dependence of them to the central bank to the government is quite relative, and the EU is absolute independence. So they still use the CPI to measure the inflation, and that is some basic information about the inflation targeting. And to assess the applicabilities of the inflation targeting into Vietnam, you can see that in the last 10 years, Vietnam inflation rates have fallen about 2 digits now, but they also have it 1 digit and below 0. And our multi-purpose policy had also began to reveal its limitations because it is too much things to focus on. And the last thing is the monetary policy had limited the abilities of the State Bank of Vietnam to react the market movement. Now that will talk about this part.
So my name is Dan, and I will continue with the alternative strategy into inflation targeting. So many economists have argued that inflation targeting didn't work as well as is expected to be an instrument for the financial stability after the concept of financial crisis in 2008. That's why alternative strategies for inflation targeting is highly necessary. One of those can be the traditional method of inflation fighting. So, what is the traditional inflation fighting techniques? It can be raising the interest rate. Australia is an example for this. The economy has benefited from that. After many times rising the interest rate in the Australia dollar, the economy of Australia has seen a significant rebound among the sluggish global economy in 2010. Second is tracking the reserve requirement by controlling the reserve ratios. Central bank can control the money supply and then kind of indirectly control the inflation rate. Third, central bank can also use the OMO to regulate the money supply and ultimately control the inflation. Last but not least is the currency appreciation. Singapore has applied this method, and in the 2007 and 2008, at the middle of the crisis, that its consumption inflation has increased 6%, but the economic growth, GDP growth rate was 10% at the same time. Okay, next. And we also find out another strategies for the inflation targeting. As we all know that inflation targeting focus on remaining a fixed inflation but forget others economics variables. That's why we're using these strategies. In this approach, central bank would choose a real target which is appropriate with particular country. It can be poverty, employment, investment, or economic growth. And after setting a clear goal, they will apply a monetary to support the goal, not the inflation, which is too ambiguous. With a clear goal, central bank policy is more transparent, more accountable, and more social useful. Then we come to our opinion about the targeting inflation. On behalf of our team, I would say that inflation target should not be applied in the Central Bank of Vietnam because, as I mentioned, each country has its own problem. Vietnam can't apply the policy of those Europe countries because our economy isn't developed as well as them. So we need different policy. Besides, inflation targeting is too rigorous and too rigid, narrowly focused on inflation. That's why it caused the crisis. It's not a good way for financial stability. And its side effect is really high, it's really big. It's caused it to slow down the economy while Vietnam wants to increase the economic growth rate as strong and as fast as possible. So I would recommend the real target for Vietnam, as Vietnam wants to get out of the middle income trap. So we need to set a real target to be increase the real GDP or real GDP per capita and apply the monetary policy to support the target, to support the goal. Okay, that is our presentation and this is our reference list. Thank you for listening.
So thank you. I have a question for AI. Where's AI? Right. Can you tell me one advantage, more detail about one advantage of the IT?
It's again the development. It's inflation targeting is appended by as many preventing further economic development. It is not entirely possible to keep the inflation at all the times.
Okay, thank you. Dad, can
Yes,
you,
it's me.
Dad, can you tell me, Vietnam, do you think that the state bank in Vietnam should follow?
I don't think
Recently,
so.
no, right?
Yes.
But in the future, do you think that we should follow or not?
In the future, it depends on a lot of factors. If the economy of Vietnam is developed as well as the Western, so if we apply the inflation target, it may be good for them because it may ensure the financial stability. But there is a lot of other factors affect the financial stability, not just the inflation. So I don't think the inflation is a good way. We should set a real target for the economy of Vietnam because I think in about 10 years we're still a developing country, so we need some real target to reach the goal before we become more stable in the economy or in the financial market.
Okay, thank you so much. Nguyen, can you tell me some examples of successful IT framework in the world?
Yes. Like I take examples of 3 countries of 3 parts of the world. Here we have New Zealand. They have the inflation rates run between 0 and 3%, and I believe that this is one of their success because they have already been a developed country, and the same happens to Canada, and the EU. They have the EU. They started this strategies about the late 90s and the early 20s. So I think this is one of their biggest success because the rates, as you see, is quite high. It is nearly 2%, and that is my example of successful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So thank you.